Hey everyone, it's Karen with Yes Please PaperCrafts, and in this video I'm going to be continuing the challenge to take this 12 by 12 paper pad and completely use it up. So the plan is to take all of the papers and build some base pages for scrapbooking and also create some embellishments that I could use on these base pages. So I have already created one video, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. And in that first video, I took the paper pad and completely tore it apart and then talked a little bit about all of the different papers that were in that paper pad and how they could be used to build base pages. And then I also selected papers for the first 6 base pages that I am going to create. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you all of the different base page designs that I have used, and then also talk a little bit about how I did each one of those. Now, not everything is glued down at this point. I wanted to try to leave some of that loose so that I could kind of move things around as I'm talking to you. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue everything down, and then I'll come back and show you the final 6 base pages. Okay, so a lot of the designs that I use come from Janet at RTS Scrapbooking. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned Janet and her YouTube channel. And Janet's channel is where I first learned about base pages. And Janet also has a series on her channel called The Go-To Designs, where she talks about basic designs for scrapbooking layouts, and a lot of which I had been using, but I didn't really know what they were called until I watched Janet's video. So if you're interested in finding out more about base pages or about the different go-to designs, I will put links to those videos in the description below, and you should definitely go and check out Janet's videos. Now, Janet still has her YouTube channel with hundreds of videos available, but back in 2020, she moved over to Patreon. And so she's not really posting anymore on YouTube, but there's still a lot of content available on YouTube that you can actually go and check out if you have not watched Janet's videos. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. This first page here is page number 1. I started off with 3 pattern papers, and I went ahead and put these into these record sleeves. I picked these record sleeves up at Amazon, and I'll put a link to that in the description below, but it's just a 12.5 by 12.5 inch plastic sleeve, and I like these a little better than the Ziploc bags because it's super easy to get your papers in and out, but it does really help with keeping things together. I use them to store paper, to store projects, to store collection kits, and also when I have projects in progress and I'm building scrapbook layouts that are not completed, I will just put everything into one of these sleeves until I have the time to finish that layout. Okay, so I had to start with 3 papers. I had this floral pink paper, I had this pink polka dot, and then I had a green paper. And what I went ahead and did here was I took all of the scraps and put them into a separate sleeve because I wanted y'all to see all of the different scraps that were left over from each one of the pages. Now I will go ahead and just keep all of these scraps, you know, from all 6 of these base pages together. I'm just going to keep all of my scraps in one of these plastic sleeves. But I just wanted to have it separate just so you can kind of get an idea of how much paper is left over after we build each one of these designs. Okay, so this first one, I used a design called the Happy Horizontal, and it's my favorite design, and I tend to go to this almost all the time. And if I'm not careful, all of my pages for scrapbooking would be the Happy Horizontal. I guess it just makes me happy, I don't know. But basically, a Happy Horizontal is just 2 pieces of paper, and it can be different sizes, but it's just basically 2 different pattern papers together. And the cool thing about these different designs is you can actually rotate your paper, and so you can have that design. There's like 4 different designs just from using these 2 pieces of pattern paper. Okay, what I like to do too when I'm doing the Happy Horizontal is I like to cover up the seam here just to make it look a little bit more finished. And so I like using washi tape and also border strips, and I punched out a couple of border strips. Now I did start off by punching out this green paper with this lacy doily kind of border, and you can see here from my leftover scraps that I have that paper left over. And after I punched that border, I realized that I would really like to have this paper in white to make it actually look like a doily. And so I went ahead and just grabbed a piece of white cardstock, and I went ahead and cut that out, border strip out with the white cardstock. And then I have this green strip, which I just used a very small border punch. And so I have that one. So my idea for this page is just to layer the papers. And I might move this just so y'all can see the actual design of each page a little better. Oops. Only bad thing about these plastic sleeves is sometimes they slide around quite a bit. Okay, so in addition to those 2 border strips, I also have some washi tape here, and I just put that onto some white cardstock, and going to put that there as well. And I just love the gold in this collection, and I know I'm probably going to be using some embellishments that have gold, and so I thought it would be fun to bring in some gold washi tape. Now, just because I'm using this 12 by 12 paper pad and trying to use it up doesn't mean I can't bring in more things from my craft room like washi tape and cardstock. And so don't limit yourself if you're following along with this project and you're taking a paper pad and using it to make base pages. You don't need to limit yourself to just what's in that paper pad. You can pull in other things from your craft room if you get inspired and you want to do something like I did here. We're pulling in this white cardstock. I thought that just was so pretty, and it really enhances this paper because this paper has all these little white flowers. So I just really love how that looks, and so I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be using this layout actually like this. And one of the other things that you can do, this could be your base page, and you could just end right here and just glue this down, and you could call this done. That would be a base page. But one of the things I like to do sometimes is if I'm thinking of a design and I want to kind of figure out before I glue some of the papers down and some of the border strips where my pictures would fit, I might take some photo mats and just cut down some photo mats and try to figure out what type of pictures or how many pictures and what size of pictures would look good on this design. And so I have 3 mats here for 3 by 4 pictures. And my thought was that I could just go ahead and add 3 pictures across here. And actually I think this was going to go this way toward the floral paper. And we would have a design something like this with the 3 pictures. And then I would have a little space up here where I could either do a cluster, I could put a title, and I think that would be a really, really pretty layout. Now, if I happen to have pictures that are horizontal and not vertical, so if these 3 pictures were landscape pictures, I could actually turn the base page this way and have my pictures going down this way. So I think one of the advantages of having base pages is that a lot of times, you can adapt it to whatever your photos are. You don't have to just use, 3 by 4 photos. If you have 4 by 3 photos, you can just flip that around. Okay, so now all of the papers that I had left over from this base page are in this sleeve here. So I'm just going to take this out, and you can see how much paper is left over from this base page. So we're going to have a lot of scraps going forward as we build more base pages. We'll have all of these scraps to play with. So I'm going to be putting all of these scraps into a pile, and when I go to the next video, I'll be picking out the papers and talking about the different things we're going to be doing for the next base pages. So I'm just going to put those over here in the pile. And for now, I'm going to be putting this back into the sleeve so that I can go ahead and keep that together until I have it all glued down. Now, if you wanted to, you could put the mats on there, or you could just write yourself a note that you want to use 3 by 4 photos. Because one of the other things that I would suggest that you do is, and that I like to do, is I have some templates that I use when I'm trying to decide what types of photos or how many or what size photos I'd like to use. You could just use some white cardstock and cut down cardstock to the different sizes of photos, And as you're working on your base pages and you're trying to determine how to lay your papers out, and you're wanting to maybe figure out if you want to add some mats to your layout or just leave the mats off, you can use this in order to figure out how many photos would fit on your layout. So you can see here I have some standard sizes like a 4x3, a 4x4, and a 4x6. And you can use those in order to kind of just play around with your designs and with your base pages. Now, one of the things that I did recently was I had this stencil plastic that I purchased from Amazon, and I'll put a link to the description below to the one that I purchased. But I thought that I could make these a little bit more durable, and so I decided to go ahead and make some of these stencils or templates for the different size photos using this stencil or template material. I'm not exactly sure. It's some kind of plastic, and it's a little bit cloudy, but I actually like that better than clear because you could see it on the paper. When you put it down onto the paper, it's a little bit easier to see. And actually, if you could get white, the more white color, it would probably work even better. Okay, one of the other things you can do too is that you can also cut some templates for the mat size. So say you wanted to use a 3x4 photo, but then you wanted to mat that photo, you might want to leave room for 3.5 by 4.5, and then you would have your photo on top of that, and then that would give you an idea of how that would fit on your layout. Okay, so anyway, that was something that I had been thinking about doing for a while, and I'm still using the cardboard, and a lot of times I can't find those cardboards, and so I end up taking another sheet of cardboard and cutting it up and making new templates because I can't figure out where I put them in my craft room. So my thought was to do these templates with the plastic. I'm going to punch holes and then keep it on a ring and put it near my the place where I work, probably hanging from my Rascog cart. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the next layout here. Okay, so for base page number 2, I had 2 pattern papers and a cut apart, and I did go ahead and cut down the cut apart, but I did want to show you what that cut apart looked like before I cut it apart. So let me bring this one in over here. There's 2 pieces of each paper in the paper pad, and so I have 2 of these, and I went ahead and cut this up, and it's 4 6x6 pieces. But I decided to actually cut this piece up a little bit smaller, so I did cut maybe about 1/4 inch or maybe a little bit more off of all the edges. And then I cut this gold frame out, and I'm going to use it to kind of as a mat to go behind this piece. Okay, so here's the pieces that I'm talking about that I went ahead and cut out of that paper. And so you can see that I'll be able to take this cut apart and lay it on top of here, and that's going to give me this gold mat for that. Isn't that just gorgeous? I just love that. Okay, so the other papers that we're working with here are this really pretty tone-on-tone blue polka dot, and you can barely even see the dots because the colors are so close to each other. And then I have this floral paper, and the floral paper, I decided I just wanted to use this as the mat for my layout. And I went ahead and gutted the inside with my paper trimmer, and because I can use that paper on another layout and I don't have to waste that paper, because you're not going to see most of that. You're just going to see just the edges. And so that's one of the things you can do to save some of your paper if you're not going to be seeing that large area, and you can go ahead and just gut the inside of it so that you can use it for another layout or something else. Okay, so this is the design that I have, and this is called the block design. It's basically just taking blocks and layering them. And so I have 3 different blocks here. All right, so basically that's what I have so far. Now, a lot of times when I'm making a block design, I just have another paper in the middle. But then if I put this in the middle, there wouldn't be anywhere to put photos. So I'm actually going to just scoot that over to the side. And I played around a little bit with the size of pictures that I would use for this layout. And I have 2 4x4 mats. And so I kind of was thinking about putting this paper down here in the corner, and then 2 photos, and then using this area up here either with a large embellishment cluster or with the title, and having just 2 4x4 pictures. And so that's going to be the style for this particular design for this layout. So this is one of my other favorite designs that I go to all the time. And I really like doing this design with the mats and matting my layouts. I think it's really pretty. And I love this blue color on top of that floral. I just think that's gorgeous. So here are all the papers that were left over when I cut apart the papers for this layout. So I have 2 pieces of these this blue paper, these little strips. I have the 3 cut aparts left over, and I was very careful when I was cutting out that gold frame to make sure that I cut this apart so that I could use that on another layout. And so I actually thought it took me a long time to get that cut apart, but I really love how that came out, and that I could use the other part of this cut apart for the gold under that one. And then I also have this large piece here. This was the piece from the middle that I gutted from that paper, this paper here. Okay, so that was what was left over from base page number 2. And you can see how many scraps we're going to have left over from each one of these base pages. And so we're going to be probably getting about maybe 20 base pages or possibly more from this scrapbook paper pad. Okay, so here is number 3, and number 3 is also a block design. And this one, I really like doing this one as well, and I think it's a lot of fun. Now you can use up a lot of paper doing this block design where you're matting the layout and then matting it and matting it again. And so I went ahead and gutted each one of these papers. So I'm going to show you kind of how all of these papers look. So I started out with this green pattern paper, which is a 12x12, and I gutted that. And next paper I have here is the yellow paper, which I did cut down to I think 11.5 by 11.5. So then I have this paper left over, and then I have this floral paper that I gutted. Or wait, let me see. Is that right? Yeah, so I have this floral paper that's going to go on there next. And I went ahead and gutted the inside of that one as well. Okay, so then we're going to go back with the green paper. And then finally, the last paper that we have here is this yellow cardstock. And that's going to be this base page. That's all we're going to do. And then later, once I decide that I want to use this base page, I can decide what else I want to do, where I want to put my pictures. You don't necessarily have to put mats on your base pages. It can be as simple as just doing a block design like this. So once I have all this glued down, then this base page will be done. Now what I have left over from this base page wasn't much. I did use, let's see, 2 pattern papers and a piece of cardstock. And all I had left over were these strips and then 2 bigger squares. I have these 2 squares plus a few strips from where I cut down those papers. So that's pretty much all I had left from those 2 pattern papers and that 1 piece of cardstock. Okay, up next is base page number 4. And for this one, I started out with 3 pattern papers. I have a floral paper with butterflies here, then also a gray tone-on-tone paper, and then this paper that was kind of like a background paper. And I'm using a design called the band design, but I'm also using the blocks as well because I used 2 blocks and matted them on top of each other. Now when you're doing the band design, you don't have to do this matting. I just chose to do it for this layout. The band design is just taking a 12x12 paper and then taking another strip of paper and laying it across, and that is the band design. Now Janet does have a video on her channel where she talks about this go-to design as well, and I'll put a link to all of these different go-to design videos in the description of this video. So if you want more information about these different designs, you can go and check out Janet's videos. Okay, so I decided to mat this layout, and I did gut the paper, so I have a big square of paper left over, and these are my scraps that I have. So I had quite a bit of paper left over from this layout. I had a couple of strips of paper from the gray paper here. I have this paper that was the guts of the paper that I used for the mat. And then I have this large piece of paper that was left over from the strip that I cut off for the band. So quite a bit of paper left over from this base page. Okay, so for this one, it's pretty simple. I am just going to lay this paper across this way and just glue it down, and that will be the base page number 4. Okay, so for base page number 5, I decided to let the papers dictate what the design should be. And I started out with 2 papers, and one paper was this really pretty background paper. I just love this paper. It's gorgeous. But I think a lot of people would have trouble trying to figure out how to use this on a layout. And when I was putting together all of the papers to make these base pages, I came up with an idea, and I really love how this turned out. Okay, so the other paper that I chose for this base page was this green tone-on-tone pattern. And the only scraps that I have left over are these 2 little pieces of that green paper, these 2 strips. Out of the 2 papers that I had selected for this base page, that's all I have left over. Okay, now I did not gut the paper here because what I ended up doing for this layout or this base page was I took my craft knife and I cut around this design on each corner of the page. Let's see if you can see that. I went through and I cut around the design on all 4 of the corners because I wanted to use this to mat the layout, and then I thought it would be really cool to make it look like these were photo corners. And I cut down this paper here a little bit, just took off about a ½ inch. So this is an 11.5 by 11.5, and I'm just going to tuck this paper down into the corners here. And so that's why I decided not to gut the paper underneath, because I'm kind of using it as a kind of a base with photo corners to hold this paper in place. Let's see if I can get all 4 of these corners in here so that you can see the design. Now the other idea that I had for this particular base page was I wanted to use some of the border strips that came with this paper pad. It had a whole sheet of border strips. And I love that this paper is very feminine, and I thought it would be really fun to just layer on some of these border strips and also punch out some kind of girly, lacy border strips with some of my punches. And so my plans for this layout, for this base page, I'm going to be layering this piece here. Let me start from the bottom. I'm going to start off with this paper here. This was a black and gold patterned floral paper, and I'm going to put that one here, and then I'm going to use this pink paper. It's kind of a tone-on-tone pink, and that one's going to go next. Then I took this paper, which this was one of the border strips that was on the cut apart. I just cut that into a strip and then used my punch to make it into like a lace. And then this piece was also one of the pieces that was on the border strip. And instead of cutting each one of these individually, I just left it as one piece. And I'm going to layer that right on top like that. And then this gold piece here was also another piece that was on the border strip cut apart. And that one is going to go just like that. And I think I might move it down a little bit, but I just love how this turned out. Yeah, I think it's my favorite of all of the different base pages that I created out of these 6. And I just think that that's gorgeous. So sometimes it's nice to let the paper dictate what your design should be by using the different papers to try to figure out different things that you can do with your scrapbooking. Okay, so this is base page number 6, and this is the last one I'm going to be doing in this video. The design for this base page came from a video that I watched on Patreon from Janet at RTS Scrapbooking, and I just fell in love with this design. So she's been doing a whole bunch of new videos on building base pages on her Patreon, and her Patreon is only $1 a month, and it's well worth that $1. She has so many videos that she posts, And I just love watching all of her videos and all of the ideas and different things that she shares on her Patreon channel. Okay, so for this particular one, it's just a bunch of scraps, and there are sizes, so I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all the different sizes for each one of these papers. So the first one that I have here is a 7 by 9, and we're just going to put that one here, just in anywhere on the page. I'm just going to put it there. The next one here that I have is a 10 by 5, and it's going to go across this way. And then we have two smaller scraps. This one I turned into banners, and that's what Janet did for her base page that she built. And so this one here is a 3 by 11, and so we're going to just put that one across here. And then the last one that I have here is a 1 inch by 10.5 inches. And you can put these any way you want, but I'm just going to layer them like that. Okay, I might scoot it over just a little bit. And that's basically all you need to do. Now, one of the things that Janet had done as well is she put some banners up here in the corner, which I thought was super cute. And so I might go ahead and just use a banner punch and put maybe 3 little banners up here in the corner, and I can have a cluster up here. And I think this is a really cool design to use for a base page. And I think what I'm going to start doing maybe is to write down some of these kind of designs or go-to designs that I can use over and over again. I might keep the measurements written down somewhere. I do have a book where I keep scrapbook sketches, but I think it would be kind of cool to maybe have some go-to designs. And if there's a particular formula like this one where you start off with these 4 pieces of paper and they're in a particular size that looks really nice, I think that would be worth writing down and keeping track of. So I might just go ahead and write this up and add it to my book of sketches. Okay, because I just love this. Some of the layouts that she did using this design were just gorgeous. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this down, and then I'm going to go back and share with you all 6 of the base pages and then talk about what's next. Okay, so I completed the first 6 base pages, and I thought I would share them with you so that you could see the final results. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going to be coming up in my next video. Okay, so for base page number 1, this is using the Happy Horizontal design. I have a place for 3 3x4 photos. And one of the things I wanted to mention that I forgot was that if you have something that you're not really sure if you want to be in that place on your base page, you can just use a little bit of an adhesive and put it down, and then that way you can go back later and move it if you would like, once you start building your layout. So if I decide I don't want to use 3 pictures, I can just take those mats off and put something else there. Okay, so for base page number 2, this one I used the block design, and I used a large cut apart, and then I have mats for 2 4x4 photos. And my thoughts around this particular base page would be that I would put a tag or a large cluster or maybe a title up here in this area. And that is the second base page. And I just really love the colors in these papers. And I don't know if you can see how pretty this is, but I want to try to see if I can hold this up closer. But look how gorgeous this floral paper is with this blue, really pale blue paper. I just think that that's so pretty. Just love that color combination. And just super, super pretty paper. I love this paper pad. Okay, the third base page is also the block design. And it's just a block on top of a block on top of a block. Now, Janet does have a video on this go-to design on her channel, on her YouTube channel. And there's a lot of different ways that you can use the block design. It doesn't have to be stacked on top of each other like this. You can do it other ways. So if you like using blocks, you need to make sure you check out that video from Janet, because she shares a lot of ideas on how to do the block design. Okay, this next one is number 4. This is using the band design. And this is where I just have a band or a strip of paper going across. I used some washi tape, and then I matted it on another paper. Okay, number 5 is my favorite. I just love how this one came out. This one I cut around the corners and used the 12 by 12 paper almost like it was a mat with photo corners for my layout. And then I just layered these border strips onto the background. Okay, and then the last one here is the base page that I saw recently on Janet's Patreon. And with this one, I just used some scrap paper in specific sizes, and I laid them out here at the bottom, and then I put a little cluster of banners up here on that top left corner. Okay, so that's all 6 of my base pages finished. So what I'm going to be doing in my next video is taking all of the scraps that were left over from these 6 base pages, adding it back into the stack of paper from that paper pad, and then going through and picking out paper for the next 6 base pages. Okay, so I also wanted to share with you some of the embellishments that I've been working on. And this time, as I'm working through this paper pad, I'm trying to think of making embellishments as I go along, because I did a project last year where I used up an entire 12 by 12 paper pad making base pages. And when I got down to the very last little bit of scraps, I thought about making embellishments, and now I don't really have much paper left. Most of the paper I had left over was cardstock. So in this case, when I'm doing this project with this paper pad, I really wanted to make sure I focused on building in some embellishments as I go. So one of the things I did was I took one of the papers that had these gold butterflies, and I started cutting this paper apart and creating a bunch of butterflies here. And then I also started cutting butterflies out of one of the other floral papers. So I'm going to have gold butterflies, and there's also butterflies in other colors. So I think those are really pretty. So using the cut aparts and the paper, the pattern paper, I'm cutting things apart. I also found that I had this paper that almost looks like doilies. So I used a scallop punch, and I'm punching out little pieces that look like little doilies. And even if it's not an entire doily, because this is the edge of the paper, I still think that this is useful because you can always tuck it behind something so that it makes it look like it's a full circle. And so I even keep these ones that are not full doilies or full circles. Okay, one of the other things that I found that was really cool was I have a stamp from Stampin' Up, and it creates this little stamped square, and it makes it look like a postage stamp. So I have a square punch, I think it was a 1-inch square punch, and then the stamp punch, and I layered these 2 pieces of paper. And I used different colors. I used white cardstock, I used some gold mirror card, and then I also used some black cardstock. So I did a lot of different variety. I didn't want them to all look the same because I didn't want it to be like too much. So I tried to vary the paper that I was using, and also the different designs. So some of these little flowers came from the cut apart, and some of it came from the pattern paper. And so I was able to get a lot of different designs, and I just think that these look so much like postage stamps. I just think that's super cute. Okay, the other thing that I did was I took a circle punch and also a scallop circle punch, and I made a few of these little embellishments where I just layered the circle on top of the scallop circle, and just did that. I also cut out some words from the cut apart, and I didn't do this one yet, but I'm layering the words onto this mirror card. Isn't that pretty? It just makes that word look like it's so much more substantial and such a nice embellishment. And I just started out with a piece of paper. So super cool. And then here is another punch that I have. I think this is a Creative Memories punch. My plan for this one was to cut out some of these little medallions and then layer them on top of a circle with one of the other papers. So I had kind of cut some of those out. I'm still working on these embellishments, but I just thought I would share this with you just so you can kind of get an idea of some of the other things that I'm doing with the scraps of paper that are in this paper pad, so that my plan is when I used up this entire paper pad, I'm going to have maybe 20 layouts and a bunch of embellishments to use for those layouts. In addition to creating all of these little embellishments, I also have the cut aparts And one of the things I did here was I have some tags here. I think there was 3 tags on, or 4 tags on the cut apart. So I have these 4 tags, and there's 2 sheets of the cut aparts. So I could create 8 tags, or I could cut out these images and make even more like ephemera. And then I have like, they had little squares here, and instead of cutting all of the little squares into squares, I used a circle punch and created some circular ephemera as well, because sometimes it's nice to have stuff that's not a square. So if you have something that's on your paper or on your cut apart, that you have a punch that would fit that shape. And even here, I kind of cut some of it off, but I still think it looks really cute. And I'll probably layer a bigger circle or something behind it, kind of like I did with these other embellishments, to make it look a little bit more special. And I think that's really super cool. Okay, and then I have some larger cut aparts here to use as well. Okay, so I hope I've inspired you to take one of your 12 by 12 paper pads and use it up for base pages and creating embellishments to go with those base pages. And if you are playing along and you're joining me on this journey of using up an entire 12 by 12 paper pad, I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you are using this paper pad, the same one that I'm using, or if you've chosen a different paper pad. Now, you can use any paper pad that you have in your stash to create base pages. Just pick one that inspires you and that has a lot of variety, and you should be able to make some really beautiful pages that you could use for your scrapbooking. Okay, so I have a short video clip with my 2 dogs, Bella and LilyBelle, that I'm going to put at the end of this video, but that's all I have. So y'all take care. Hope y'all have an awesome day, and I will see you next time. Bye now. What you doing? Are you going to help me do some scrapbooking? Can you say hi to the YouTube people? No! How come you don't want to talk to them anymore? They don't ever... What? Where are you going? You don't want to talk? You're not going to talk to me? LilyBelle, come over here and talk to Mama. If Bella won't say hi, maybe LilyBelle will say hi. Maybe LilyBelle will talk to us. You don't want her to talk to us? Well, then maybe you better start talking then. You gonna say anything? Yeah? You don't want LilyBelle to talk? No? Hi, LilyBelle. What you doing? Can you say hi to the YouTube people? Y'all are too funny. Are you gonna say hi? What else you gotta say? Yeah? You said it's your job to say hi? Yeah, it is? Yeah, you get to say hi. Okay. Does LilyBelle get to say goodbye then? Is it LilyBelle's job to say goodbye? No, that's your job too? You sure are bossy. You're getting too big for your britches. You're sassy. Yeah, sassy. Oh, you don't like being called sassy? No? Y'all are too funny. Come over here. Okay, so can you say goodbye to the YouTube people since it's your job? No? Oh, what else you got to say? Can you tell them to have a nice day? Say, have a nice day. You don't want them to have a nice day? That's kind of mean. Don't be mean, Miss Bella. Okay, so be nice. Tell everybody to have a nice day and say goodbye. You want me to ask LilyBelle? No? Okay, well you be nice and you say it then. No, you're gonna pout. LilyBelle, can you say goodbye? Can you speak? Can you say woof woof? LilyBelle. LilyBelle, can you say woof woof? No? Okay, Miss B, are you going to stop pouting to say goodbye? All right. Don't get too sassy, Missy. Don't get too sassy. Okay, well, that's all we have. I hope y'all have an awesome week. And we hope to see you next time. Bye now.